Hello, everyone. This is the Chicken Bone Trail. I am AC Swift, and I'm here today with a dear friend of mine. His name is Michalie Jamison. Been friends for a lifetime. Born in Boston, moved to Mississippi, went to Chicago, been all over the place, done some great things, been a very successful musician, music writer. He's done some things that he'll get a chance to tell you about. So I want to welcome everyone to the Chicken Bone Trail. And I'd like to introduce Michalie Jamison. Hey, Michalie, how are you today?
What's up, Swell? How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing well, man. It's really good to see you today. Man, it's always a pleasure. I know we talk often, but it's really good to see you. Good. Thank you for coming on the podcast, man. And we're just giving some time out of your day to just kind of talk about the things that you've done, man. Tell me about your chicken bone trail and what does it mean to you, So you have the floor. You can, just kind of introduce yourself and kind of go from there, man.
Yeah, man. Well, the Chicken Bone Trail basically is like a journey. You know what I mean? Um, it's a story based on, you know, everybody has a journey, but Chicken Bone Trail is something that basically back in, you got a Chicken Bone Trail beach, you know what I'm saying, that we know
Mm-hmm.
about. And it was basically, you know, um, chicken being trailed, you know what I'm saying? Great migration from Mississippi to Chicago. I just kind of
Right.
put it in my story as a worldwide journey, you know what I'm saying?
That's great. That's great. That's great. That's all right.
Yeah.
Right, right, right. So, Kelly, could you tell us a little bit about your beginnings, man, your humble beginnings, and how you ended up as a successful songwriter, man? How you ended up with being the songwriter of the year? How you nailed hits for people like Mary J, Faith Evans, people such like big names in the game, and how you ended up with Puff, and how did that, turn out?
Well, man, long before all of that, I've always had a passion for music. Even when I didn't understand, like how it began, like when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I would stare at the radio and wonder what's inside of it, when I
Mm-hmm.
was a kid, and I would hear um, songs with emotions. And right then, I didn't understand that, that was going to turn me into a songwriter. But, I would hear things like, Debbie Boone, you light up my life. That would bring an emotion over me. And that was like in the early 70s when I was young. I was, knee high, but I can hear it. And I would look at the radio and just be like, what's inside of this making it sound like that? So that basically, I guess I could say, was the first time I felt like emotions was inside of me when it came down to music. So when I, got a bit older, we moved from Boston to Mississippi. As you know, AC, we was heavy into sports, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
absolutely, absolutely.
So, sports was, basketball was my first love,
Mm-hmm.
you know, outside of baseball and the things that we did when we were younger, but, I really wanted to be a basketball player.
Right,
And,
right, right.
so sports kind of carried me and of course, what I'm saying, with my mother and uncle being pastor and assistant pastor and me being a drummer at church, what I'm saying, I was always around music. But, again, sports was my first love. But when I end up leaving for college and going to, you know, this Lane College, this Black historical school down in Jackson, Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was playing basketball for that school, and um, when it came down to the music, it was a talent show. I just wanted to be noticed. I don't know why, but
Right,
you
right, right.
when I performed at that talent show at Lane College, that's when it really hit me when I got the response that I wanted And that's when I recognized that, man, I could possibly do this. Now, I hadn't got back into writing yet, but it was just basically about me, the thought of being known for something that I could just naturally do.
Right. So I heard you say about your mother and your uncle, they were heavy into the church. So how, I know being from the South, both of us being from the same place, back at that time, a lot of people frowned if you're heavy into the church and you wanted to get into secular music. A lot of people frowned upon that. So how did your mother, how did your family take what you were trying to do? Did they support? Were they against it? How was it?
Well, if you want me to be honest, they wasn't too keen on me being in the secular world because, of course, Pentecostal Church of God in Christ,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
those um practices was just made, and you were taught that it was only for, you know, God, it was only for the power of God, and that's, you know, anything else was worldly. So, I had a tough time with that, and I struggled with it. But
Mhm.
you know, my passion, and the love that I have, not just for the world, not in a sinful way, but just trying to express myself creatively. It was just something inside of me that knew that I had a gift, not just for you know making people pay attention to me
Mhm.
on my gifts, and it made me, and it stimulated me to do those things that I wanted to really do.
Yeah,
So
that's yeah, that's amazing because I do know that the influences of the church in the Bible Belt area, especially back when we came up, like I said, you
I
and I
mean, you can
met.
go back from Sam Cooke now, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, they had the same problems. I mean,
they had the same
they
problems.
had
Yeah,
the same problems. Everybody, that came from
yeah,
that Bible Belt area, the Chitlin Circuit, everything like that. I faced the same thing, but it just wasn't. It was just a different time.
different
But
time. Yeah.
yeah, that was difficult though.
So, like I spoke about in the intro, there were you work with a lot of heavy hitters in the industry. So tell me two things. How was it working for Puff? And who did you have the best synergy with as an from a writer to with an artist? Who was that person, male or female or group? How was it with Puff and who did you have the best synergy with?
Well, see, we got to go back to just even the travels in Chicago
Okay.
that led me to even writing for them, because it was a whole lot of influence that
Okay.
led me to that way. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I know the things that this young man, I mean, I can't say young no more, but you know, this guy that really influenced me was R. Kelly. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, so we could start from there, you know what I'm saying? Because in the 90s, he was the he was the premier songwriter, singer, you know what I'm saying? And we kind of favored at that time back in the day. I can
Right.
remember when Vibe came out, that's what really did it. Like, like his name is R. Kelly. My birth name is Michalie Jamison. And I'm like, this guy kind of looked like me, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh man, I know this. I know now I can do this. You know what I'm saying? So it all started in Chicago
Right.
around
Right.
that time. So, when I moved to Chicago from Mississippi, that's when I got in a group, you know what I'm saying, that was signed to Luke Records, you know what I'm saying, called You Mine.
Okay.
I mean, you know, but the thing about it is they didn't have a writer. So that's how I started, well, before then, I wrote a song, and it got on the radio before I got in that group. And although it was switched around, it was like a song called Stroke You Up. I wrote it at this producer's house. And the next thing you know, I hear that on the radio, switched around.
So did you
And
get
it,
credit for it?
no, I didn't get credit for it and I didn't care. That just still gave me more fuel because I was like, oh, I can do this. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Okay.
And
Okay.
then once Mary J. Blige came out with that Real Love. You know, now by this time I was in the group, but when that Real Love came out and I heard her, I was like, I'm gonna write for her one day. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Then shortly after that, when I heard as Faith Evans, as soon as I get home, um, that was the major time that I felt like I could do it. You know what I mean?
Right. I got it. Okay. So now you unofficially have a song on the radio. You hear Mary, you hear Faith. You put it out in the atmosphere that you was going to write for him one day. So the question is, did you write for him one day?
Yep. Well, that's how that happened was I end up getting a record deal. I end up getting a record deal in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And from that record deal that I lost, by the way, I was signed to Priority Records. I had a hit single called Keep It Real
Okay.
that went platinum from, I Got the Hookup soundtrack, Master P. He was hot at that time.
Right.
One of the largest down south artists. We don't have to make no introduction to him, but he put one of my songs on the I Got the Hookup soundtrack. And then from there, Puffy got wind of a writer because I started writing for people. I ended up meeting Keith Crouch and writing for Toni Braxton. And
Okay.
all of a sudden, I started getting a name as a writer around LA. And then that's when Puff, started hearing about me.
Okay.
So that's how I end up meeting Faith and Mary and all of them. And yeah, that's when the magic started happening.
Oh, really? So your time, obviously you met Puffy and you signed with Bad Boy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you signed with Bad Boy. What was it like? What was the experience? Because I know people see at that time they see him on videos and he's all over the place. He was the hottest thing out there. I mean, Bad Boy was it was everything. You had your Mary, you had your Faith, you had your Jodeci, 112. You had Mace. I mean, it seemed like they couldn't do no wrong. How was it being a part of that team? Was it very stressful? Was it competitive? How did you get on songs? What was that process like?
Well, I already had a few songs out. Like I told you, I had a song that was on Toni Braxton's album. I think it was on the I can't think of what album that was, but by the time I signed with Bad Boy, I already had been through, having a deal, losing the deal, you know what I'm saying? So I was kind of getting keen to the business at about that point.
Mm-hmm.
But Puff was a sample driven company. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to understand I was a ballad writer at first, you know what I'm saying? I was cut from Babyface and, you know,
Yeah.
big ballad songs, you know what I'm saying? And then I went from big ballad songs. So when I got with Puff, you know what I'm saying, this was the, king. He had the queen of hip hop and R&B, he had Faith and Mary, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
They both was just like, you take your choice, you know what I'm saying? You want to ride a Rolls Royce or you want to go in a Lamborghini. It was like, you know, the car blunt of hip hop and R&B. So he had like, he was a sample driven company. So, that's when I started writing to, saying hip hop beats.
Got it,
You know,
got it, got it, got it.
and saying, I mean, it was fine because, saying, I was, I mean, we all in the same era. So, saying, I was hip to it.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, it was just a changing. Like how music change and
Yeah.
evolve all the
Evolve,
time.
yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Okay, well, we gotta, kind of want to turn and head in a different direction. I know that you are a family man. Um, I know you had some issues, or not issues, just some tragedies that happened in your life. Um, could you talk about that? Is that something you want to talk about, man? How did that affect your career? What did you do? How did you pick yourself up and get back to what you do, what you've been called to do?
Well, yeah, that was a point in my life where, all of the things that I was doing at that time, I was married, with with um a kid with two kids at the time, what I'm saying, with three kids at the time. But yeah, Stephanie, she was
Okay.
that's a part of the Chicken Bone Trail, and that's a part of the material that we're gonna, display. But she was one of the first women that I met in Chicago that was, 100% down with me when it came down to, you know, um, being me. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, when we was in Chicago, when all that was going on, she was right there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right, right.
how I guess people say ride or die, whatever like that. That's what she was. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you know, when we got to that, when I got to the pinnacle of what I was doing, she ended up getting cancer. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And and the kids were very young at that time, so it kind of it was it was a it was a real like hard moment at that time. It was tough to deal with, man. Because it kind of altered everything I had going on. You know, because now when you have that backbone and you have that person that's going to be there. You hear athletes talk about it all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
when they have to be in different states, you know what I'm saying, night in, night out, you know what I'm saying? Somebody got to be there taking care of the kids and making sure the kids are cool, you know what I'm saying? So that kind of I can correlate with that because it happened to me, you know what I mean? So,
Right, right, right.
you know, and then I had to also take care of her, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So I was there every step of the way until, you know, um the last breath, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I can only
um
imagine that that was a very, very tough moment in your life. And I do remember getting the phone call from you. Like I said,
mhm,
we've been lifelong friends, and I do remember getting the phone call from you, and I knew, I didn't answer. You called, I didn't answer, and I knew what it was. To be honest, I was afraid to pick up, and I did not want
mhm,
to get the news that I was thinking was coming my way, and it proved to be true once I did answer the phone. So, I
mhm,
know I wasn't there as far as when it happened, but I felt a certain way, and I know I can only imagine, or I probably can't imagine how you felt in that moment because you was right there, boots on the ground, you know, taking care of your wife at the time. And so
mhm,
I know that, like I said, I know that was a tough moment, and I know that's a part of your journey. And to get sidetracked or to get hit with something like that only made your journey much more tougher to do, because I know that wasn't the end of your career. And so we're kind of going to the next phase. And so if I remember correctly, you were heading into the movie industry. You wanted to start doing films. and trying to break into that. So how is that going?
Man, honestly, just just tagging back, just tagging back over to, just going back over to, how I was able to rebound. It was my kids, man. They was resilient.
Yeah.
If they wasn't straight, then I wasn't gonna be straight. You know what I'm saying? They pretty much, what I'm saying, like, um, like my oldest daughter, Jazz, she'll be like, "Yo, Dad, we're gonna be fine." MJ was only 8, 9 years old. So, saying, then my middle daughter, all of them, like, gave me the okay to keep going and finding and getting back to what, makes me happy, because that would make them happy. So that's the answer to that question when you ask me, how was I able to rebound,
Okay.
from that.
Right,
So
right.
now fast forward, um, when it came down to the film industry, that testament goes to Cootie and Chike.
Okay.
You know,
Right,
so
right.
you
Shout
know,
out to Cootie and Chike. I did get a chance to meet them earlier
yeah,
this year, so I appreciate that, man.
yeah, they are, saying my inspiration. Um, Me and Cootie always had a relationship because, like through that period of time back in the early '90s, in the from the early '90s all the way up to the early 2000s, we always had a relationship, and I would always see him with a camera. So, um, I don't know if you remember the Ben Wilson story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Like,
remember that. I remember watching it. And
yeah. Well, years before that 30 for 30, actually, when I was living in Mississippi, I got approached with a book. Um, I got approached with a book from Mary Wilson. That was Ben's aunt. That was
mhm.
Ben's mother's sister that lived in Columbus, Mississippi, that went to our church.
Right, okay.
So, I mean, this is how ironic this is. She approached me and was like, "You kind of look like my nephew," and she gave me a book to read. You know what I'm saying? I had that book like that had to be like '86 or something like that. And then when I moved to Chicago, what I'm saying, I always knew about this cat, but years later, fast forward years later, me and Cootie was talking about Ben Wilson, you know what I'm saying? And I said, man, I told him about the book, and he said, man, my uncle wrote a poem in that book or something, he told me. And he said, I'm gonna do that. He said, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that movie. I'm gonna, so that was his drive was like to get that Ben Wilson movie or documentary done. We was he was dead focused on that. And then that's when, when he finally got it done, he invited me to do the score. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
All right. Yeah.
Now, when I scored it for 30 for 30, that was my first score. And so, you know what I'm saying? So his first, I don't know if this was yeah, I think it was his first documentary, if I'm not mistaken. Him and Chike. Um, and I scored that, and then that's when, we all moved out to LA
Okay.
to try to,
Right.
try to be this film company. But I really that's when we started, when we lived together, that's when the Chicken Bone Trail. That's when we started talking about the Chicken Bone Trail, and that's when we started writing that whole, and then, and but it started with Cootie just saying, "Hey man, Michalie, tell that story about, saying your upcoming and how you come up, and and we'll be around like a host of people, and I'll keep their attention for hours just speaking about it." Like Cootie was like, "Man, we got to do this movie. We got to do this
Right.
movie, Chicken Trail," and Chike and all of them would be just like we got to tell this story. So this story actually is almost like 21 years old. You know what I'm saying? In the making, you know. But as time progressed, what I'm saying, it's a journey piece. So that's how we get down to saying, like, what does the Chicken Bone Trail mean? In our own words, it's a journey piece. And, of course, what I'm saying, like, you been a part of it from day one. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
the whole journey, you know, even when it came down to, you know, hey, the parts that we definitely needed to tie in, and things like, you know, by us being friends, you know, me from knee high, you know, with you coming in and saying, hey man, you probably need to tighten this up and tighten that up. Hey, did you get this trademarked? Hey, did this happen? Did that happen? So it was just a whole community of people and a
Right.
family. And it's like a genuine, it's going to be a genuine picture. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like I'm a blessed person to have gone through all of these, you know, peaks and valleys, and to have people that really, you know, genuinely cared, for me and what I stand for. You know what I mean?
Right, right,
Uh,
right.
and it, you know, like I said, Cootie Chike, they are brilliant people because they've done a lot of, they're doing a lot of great things, and right now they're shooting the Ernie Barnes film, which another film that I'm scoring along with them.
Oh, it's good.
So
Can't wait to see that, man.
yeah. So it's just a lot of great things going on in the film industry, man. You know what I'm saying? And you know, to be able to you know, to transfer into from, you know, writing on you know, tracks to just writing for scores and actually writing stories and acquiring stories, you know what I'm saying? It's a great feeling.
Well, I tell you, man, that's the journey that you have is a very interesting journey. I'm close to it, so I know some of the intricate details. But I would love to get you back on for a part two of the Chicken Bone Trail. Maybe we can go in depth and talk a little bit more about some of the challenges that you had, some of the triumphs that you got, man, your highest peak, you know, that thing that kept that drive, that kept you going. So I'd love to get you back on the Chicken Bone Trail podcast and we can talk about it, man. We could elaborate more, man. I know your fans would love to hear it. Our town, our small town back here in Mississippi would love to hear it because they always rooting because they want somebody to come from out of their town and represent on a national stage. And you've done very well by doing stuff like that. So, hey, I want to commend you, man. Once again, thank you for being part of the Chicken Bone Trail. This is our
Yeah,
first episode.
yeah, yes. And outside of this podcast, you know, we got an audio podcast that's coming soon on, you know, Creative Control to Spotify. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, y'all got to check that out. You know, it's a musical. You heard it, right?
Yes, I've heard it. Yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah. So, you know, I want y'all to stay tuned for that as well. You know what I mean? That's gonna be more of not a visual, but a musical that you can basically, you know, actually hear the music, the sounds, the, you know, the whole intricate part of what we're speaking about now. You know what I'm saying? So yes, you guys stay tuned. AC man, thank you for, you know, inviting me, you know, on this
Yeah, no
glorious,
doubt.
and we're gonna continue the Chicken Bone Trail, brother.
Hey, well, once again, thank you for coming on, man. The Chicken Bone Trail podcast. We'll look forward to talking to you soon, man. God bless. We'll see everyone later.